Okay, so we're going to do section 2 on state legislatures today. You're going to look at the key terms. There's some words here called apportioned, initiative, referendum, recall, revenue, sales tax, excise tax, income tax, bonds. The main idea of the reading is that state legislatures are organized much like Congress, like out in Washington, D.C. States have procedures for making laws and creating taxes to pay for state services. All right, so here we go. Because your state legislators usually get less news coverage than members of Congress do, you might be less aware of the activities of lawmakers in your state. However, state legislators make most of the laws that affect your day-to-day life. Who are state legislators? In the early years of our nation's history, the states were mostly rural with small populations. The demands on state governments were not great. Legislators would leave their jobs as farmers, lawyers, or business people for a few weeks each year to go to legislative sessions. Over time, however, the rapid growth of industries and cities led to new responsibilities for state governments. As legislatures met more often and for long sessions, citizen legislators found it difficult to balance their government duties with the demands of their regular jobs. Today, many state legislators are full-time lawmakers. The typical legislator has studied political science, law, or public administration, and has spent time in government service before running for office. Often, state legislators plan on a lifelong career in politics. Organization of state legislatures. All states except Nebraska have a bicameral or two-house legislature with an upper house called a Senate. The lower house is usually known as the House of Representatives, although in some states the lower house is called the Assembly or General Assembly. Sessions. State governments, like the national government, divide legislative terms into sessions. Most states hold annual sessions, while a few meet every other year. Most states limit the terms of these sessions to a period of 20 days up to 6 months. However, the governor may call special sessions. Representation. Seats in state legislatures are apportioned or divided among districts on the basis of equal representation. Legislators represent districts with about the same population. Seats used to be apportioned on a geographical basis, as in the United States Senate. Anyway, they're apportioned based on geography, just like the United States Senate. One legislator might have represented a rural district with a few hundred people, while another represented all the people in a large city. In Reynolds versus Sims, which was a Supreme Court case from 1964, that court case ruled that the apportionment of both houses of state legislatures must be based on population. Today, most states reapportion seats in their legislatures every 10 years based on the results of the United States Census. Making laws. The primary function of a state legislature is to make laws. By and large, the process is the same as in Congress. Bills are introduced, discussed in committees, and debated on the floor. Both houses must agree on the final bill, which the governor must then approve. A major difference between lawmaking in Congress and in state legislatures, however, is that in some states, citizens have a greater voice in the laws that are made. An initiative. One method of giving lawmaking powers to citizens is called the initiative, the process by which citizens can propose laws. In this process, citizens gather signatures on a petition. When enough people have signed the petition, usually 5 to 10% of the registered voters, the proposed law is put to a vote in a statewide election. If a majority of the voters approve the proposal, it becomes state law. Referendum. Another way that citizens can participate in lawmaking is the referendum, the process by which a citizen is referred to the voters to approve or reject. Okay, let me say that again. Another way that citizens can participate in lawmaking is the referendum, the process by which a law is referred to the voters to approve or reject. Almost every state requires a referendum on constitutional amendments proposed by the legislature. Both initiatives and referendums are ways that citizens can take lawmaking into their own hands. If enough people believe that a certain law is needed or that a bad law should be removed, they can use an initiative or a referendum. So an initiative is started by the people. A referendum is started by a government body. And then both of those things have to be voted on by the people. A recall is citizens in some states also have the power of recall or process for removing elected officials from office. A recall effort is usually begun by citizens who believe that an official is not doing a good job or is dishonest. Citizens begin a recall by gathering voter signatures on a petition. If in the recall election that follows, a majority of voters agree with the recall, the official must leave office. Okay, we're going to go down here to the California recall. More than 25 states authorize the recall as an option. However, it has been used infrequently. The most recent recall election occurred in California in 2003. Voters felt that Governor Gray Davis was not doing a good job, especially because the state was facing a serious economic crisis. Voters faced with a ballot of more than 100 candidates voted to recall Governor Davis, and they elected the Austrian-born actor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Davis was only the second governor to be recalled in the history of our country. The state legislatures. State legislatures have the power to oversee or check the activities of the executive and the judicial branches. In many states, the legislature must approve officials and judges who are appointed by the governor. State legislatures also must approve the governor's budget. In this process, the legislature examines how well executive agencies are doing their jobs. State legislators also review how federal funds are spent in their state. Legislatures in most states have the power to impeach or bring charges against executive and judicial officers and to determine their guilt or innocence. By and large, the impeachment process in the state is much the same as the process followed in Congress. State governments need money to meet the needs of citizens for important services. Where does the money come from? Taxes. States raise more than 50% of their revenue or income from taxes. Most states have two kinds of sales taxes or charges made on purchases of goods sold in a state. This charge usually is a percentage of the price of a product. A second kind of sales tax is the excise tax, a charge on certain goods such as alcoholic beverages, gasoline, and tobacco. Most states also have an income tax, a tax on the earnings of individuals and businesses. The income tax is a percentage of the money a person or business makes. Bonds and lotteries. Sometimes states borrow money by selling bonds, certificates that people buy from the government. The government agrees to pay back the cost of the bond plus interest after a set period of time. States often use this method of raising revenue for such projects as building a school or convention center. Some states also raise money through lotteries. About 60% of the money from lottery ticket sales goes toward prizes. The remaining 40% goes to the state. Federal funds. Over time, state and local governments have increasingly turned to Congress for money. Federal money comes to the states in several forms. Two of the most widely used forms of categorical grants are categorical grants and block grants. Categorical grants are given for specific purposes such as a job training program, or highway construction. These grants come with strings attached, certain conditions that must be met before the state may use the funds. Block grants are given for more general purposes. The state can decide for which programs to use the block grant funds. All right, so now we've covered Chapter 11, Section 2.